Welcome back to the series of literary criticism. Today we have to start a new chapter, chapter number 3 on middle-aged critic, and we'll be discussing Philip Sidney and his work Defense of Poesy. So let's begin. Before digging deep into Defense of Poesy by Philip Sidney, one thing is to be cleared, that what exactly was the reason that forced Mr. Sidney to become a critic, because he belonged to the period of Renaissance wherein literature was flourishing, and everyone from courtiers to poets to everyone was appreciating literature. So what actually made him a critic? So the reason number one is that poetics written by Aristotle that got that flourished, everyone that was discovered, and everyone started questioning the nature of poetry. And the second reason is that the religious sect of Puritans, okay, they hated poetry. Why? Because not according to them, we know that poetry is a form of art, and according to them, any form of art for the sake of entertainment, that was considered immoral and corrupt. Okay, so one such Puritan named Stephen Gusson, in 1578, he published a pamphlet naming it School of Abuse, and dedicated it to Mr. Philip Sidney. And in this pamphlet, he gave 4 different reasons for the reason which he abused poetry. And the 4 reasons are, according to Stephen Gusson: number 1, poetry is a waste of time. Number 2, poetry is mother of lies. Number 3, poetry is a nurse of abuse. And number 4, Plato has rightly banished poets from the ideal world. He supported Plato's ideas of banishing the poets, and he also considered that poets and poetry is actually immoral and corrupt. Now, Defense of Poesy, when translated to English, it literally means apology for poetry. And this was actually a response to School of Abuse, written by Stephen Gusson, and this was printed in the year 1595. Defense of Poesy is considered as the epitome of Renaissance poetics. Okay, it is considered as the poetics, but from the period of Renaissance, and it actually inaugurated the criticism in England. And here in this work, Philip Sidney actually defends poetry. Starting with the work Defense of Poesy, Sidney actually praised poetry and gave 3 different reasons for his praises, and also gave a definition to poetry. He said, poetry is a speaking picture with an end to delight and to teach. He compared poetry to a picture that is speaking, that speaks to you. Along with the speech it gives to you, it teaches you and even delights you. And then the 3 reasons given by him are: number 1, poetry precedes all branches of learning. Number 2, universality of poetry. And number 3, poetry is highly respectable. Taking the first point, poetry precedes all branches of learning. Sidney said, take the example of Homer, the first Greek. Even he wrote poetry. All the philosophers, across the ages, they wrote poetry. Take the example of Anglo-Saxons, the most ancient people. Even they loved poetry. They wrote in poetry in the form of poems. So if you see, poetry is actually preceding all branches of learning, all these different kinds of learning, different subjects, history. Let's take the example of philosophy, history, astronomy. All these came later on, but poetry existed from the very beginning. And then the second point, universality of the poetry. Sidney says that poetry flourished across all the countries and throughout all the ages. He gave the example of the Tartans, the uncivilized men. Even they wrote poetry, and they loved poetry because poetry used to soften their heart. It was a medium of pastime for them. And then coming to the third point, that is, poetry is extremely respectable. Sidney says that Greeks and Romans, they respected poetry, they honored poetry, and they used to call poets as prophets. Then the Delphi oracle, it used to deliver its speeches in the form of verses. Take the example of Bible. Bible has, in the Old Testament, Bible has Psalms, the book of Psalms, wherein Psalms is written in the form of songs or poetry. So poetry is basically perfect according to Sidney. Now after this, Philip Sidney very smartly compares poetry to history and philosophy. And he says that poetry is actually superior to history as well as philosophy. How? Let's take the example of history. He says history gives you facts and gives you examples, and the reader who reads the history has to actually derive the truth out of history. Whereas poetry presents you universal truth, and it gives you universal truth directly. You don't have to, start deriving truth out of it. The truth that poetry has to offer is applicable all around the world in every phase of your life. And then talking about philosophy, he says that philosophy gives you abstract concepts that cannot be understood by younger people. It cannot be understood by the kids. Whereas if you take poetry, the concepts presented in poetry is so easy that it can be understood by kids also. For example, if you give a child of class 5 a poem written by Shakespeare in an easy language, he will be able to understand that, but he won't be able to understand Plato's philosophy. So poetry is better than history as well as philosophy. Now, after this very smart comparative study given by Sidney, he talks about divisions of poetry, wherein he divided poetry into 3 types. He says that poetry can be religious, philosophic, or true or right knowledge giving. Now, what is religious poetry? The poetry that actually evokes your spirituality. And then philosophic poetry, the poetry that kind of presents you abstract concepts and knowledge, the truth from the other world, kind of that. And then finally the true or right knowledge, in which he gave different kinds of poetry, such as tragic poems that is related to sadness, and then pastoral poems talking about common man's feelings, then elegiac poems, the poems wherein you sympathize or empathize with your loved ones or the ones who are already dead, and then lyrical poem that is basically enjoyed in the form it has been sung, and then epic poem that celebrates some heroes or some god's life, and then comic poem that talks about follies and foolishness, and it is enjoyed very light-heartedly, and then satiric poem wherein folly is shown or which has a mocking kind of a tone. Now here we have completed part A of this lecture. In my next lecture, I'll be completing part B, wherein I'll be discussing the answers that he gives to the charges of School of Abuse, then how he justifies meter and rhyme, and he also discusses problems of the Renaissance theatre and problems in English language. Sorry, he praises English language. And then finally, I'll be discussing some questions that came in the previous years. So that's it for today. Thank you.